Hello! Welcome again to the Daily Mishnayot. So today we'll be learning Brachot, the 6th parak, Mishnayot 3 and 4. Our learn should be in memory of Lenny Spodek, and our learn should continue to be for his neshama. And we will start right in the Mishnah. So this Mishnah is going to speak about, we previously discussed the brachot, the certain blessings that one recites before before eating foods, to kind of acknowledge that God is the one who actually creates these foods and provides us with these foods. And we previously discussed foods that grow from trees and from the ground, and wine, and what brachot, what blessings you make on them. Now we're going to discuss other foods, some of which, for example, don't grow from the ground or aren't trees or things like that. So let's get right into the Mishnah. Al davar she'en gedula mina aretz. So any food item that does not have its roots in the land, meaning it doesn't derive nourishment from the land. For example, meat, fish, and eggs, things like that, which don't grow from the ground. Omer shehakol. So one would say the bracha of shehakol. This blessing is shehakol niya b'dvaro, and it's a more general category of a blessing. It's praising God for that everything came into being with His words, meaning that He creates everything. It's not talking about specifically, God, you're the one who creates the fruit from the tree. It's a more general category of blessing, just describing that God's the creator of all. And so this is the blessing that one would say in something that doesn't grow from a tree or other like plant, that one would say a blessing to thank God for a plant. So that is the shehakol blessing. The full text is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are you, God, King of the universe. Shehakol niya, that everything came into being with your word and with your direction. And so let's continue. So additionally, the Mishnah means that anything that not only doesn't grow from the ground, but doesn't derive its nourishment from the ground. So, for example, mushrooms. Mushrooms we know grow from the ground, but they're fungi and they derive nourishment from other organisms and not specifically from the soil and from the ground itself. So you also see shehakol on those because they don't derive their nourishment directly from the soil and directly from the ground. So, al hachomitz ve'al hanovlot ve'al hagovai omer. So on wine vinegar, which is like a wine which it's like sour wine, for example, and fruits, unripe fruits, which actually fell before they were ripened, fell from the tree before they were ripened, and they actually ripened off the tree itself, and ve'al hanovlot, and that's the fruits that fell prematurely from the tree. Ve'al hagova, on certain species of like locusts or insects that do have kosher signs, but are like certain types of insects that may like be detrimental. So omer shehakol. One would say the blessing of shehakol niya b'dvaro, that everything came into being with God's words, with God's directions. So the reason that we say the shehakol on these items is because all these items should belong to a more specific category. Specifically, actually, the chometz, which is the wine vinegar, and the novla, which are the unripe fruits. So these should belong to their more specific counterpart categories. So, for example, wine vinegar should have been considered to be wine, or unripe fruits should have been considered to be regular fruits. However, because of their different nature and because of their less, we could call it, they're not as great in stature, nature, meaning they don't have a the category of these items is not like top notch, and that cannot be compared to, for example, regular fruits or regular wine. We would say a more general blessing and not praise God for a specific for these specific items, because they're not as superior to, like compared to them. They're not as top notch or as respectable. So So, so wine vinegar, it's like sour wine. One wouldn't say the bracha of hagafen, the blessing of hagafen, which is thanking God for creating the fruit of the vine, because it's not as high of a category. And aval hanovo, and the unripe fruits, or the fruits that ripened off the tree, they're not like regular fruits. They don't derive their complete nourishment from the tree, and they're not, they can't really be compared to regular fruits. And one would also say the bracha of shehakol on these, and valgova and locusts. One also would say the shehakol blessing on these. On these locusts, one would also additionally say these the shehakol on these. Al hachalav, al gvina, al beitzim. Now the Mishnah is going to bring in other examples where you'd see the shehakol blessing. On milk, on cheese, on eggs, one will also say the shehakol blessing, obviously, because these don't derive their nourishment from the ground. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kol Shu Min Kol Ha'in Varchan Lav. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that any species that is a species of curse, we don't make a blessing on. So what is a species of curse? So it's actually defined as something that is detrimental or causes detriment to others. So this clause is going on the beginning of the Mishnah, which states that the wine vinegar, for example, is a species of curse because one shouldn't drink wine vinegar in the raw, because it causes detriment to oneself and it causes harm, and therefore when eating this food, it's not correct to say a blessing on this, thanking God, because in the long run it's going to harm the person who's actually drinking it. So one should make no blessing at all on this. And additionally, for the other food we discussed, which is unripened fruits, or fruits that ripened off the tree, one also on that, Rabbi Yehuda will actually hold that you would say shehakol on those. It would seem, or actually, we could even say over here that on these unripened fruits, these ones that ripened off the tree, they're damaged themselves. So we wouldn't say ha'etz on them. We wouldn't say the regular, we wouldn't say the regular shehakol blessing on them, because they're damaged. So we shouldn't thank God in the normal way for these, because they're damaged. Additionally, for locusts, which cause damage to others, they eat away crops, and we should also not make a blessing on these, because these are detrimental. We shouldn't praise God in the normal way for these. So that is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Let's continue on to the fourth Mishnah, which is the second Mishnah of the day. Hailufan of minim harbe. So this Mishnah is going to talk about when one has multiple foods in front of him. So it should be stated that when one has multiple foods of the same blessing, the same bracha, one could make one bracha, make one blessing to discharge his obligation for all the foods. He doesn't have to make an individual blessing on each item. So this is talking about and it's gonna speak that one makes the blessing on the most significant item. So the Mishnah is gonna speak about how we assess which item is more significant. So, hayufan of minim harbe. If someone has in front of him many species, many different types of fruits or types of foods, Rabbi Yehuda says, Im yesh b'nei amimin sheva v'varchav. If there's one of the 7 species included in here, he makes a blessing on this. These 7 species we're talking about is 7 of the species that the land of Israel in the Torah is praised for, and these are praised for their superior quality. So it's not only that because they grow in Israel and because Israel produces an abundance of these, they are praiseworthy, but because these fruits themselves are have a certain stature and are certain they're fruits that are like superior to others. So Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is saying that if one has fruits or species or vegetables, for example, from these 7 species, one should make a blessing on these. Just to note, these 7 species are wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. So on all of these fruits, so Rabbi Yehuda says that if, for example, let's say you have a date and an apple, Rabbi Yehuda would say make the blessing on the date first to discharge the apple, because the date is of higher significance, and that's the one you should make the blessing on. However, the sages say, you just make a bracha, you make a blessing on whichever one has superiority to you, meaning that what actually determines its significance is how much you enjoy the item itself, and that actually takes significance over whether it's a species, one of the 7 species, because whichever one has significance to you, I would suggest that that's the one that you would praise God most for, and you would appreciate most. So you would make the blessing on that to fulfill the other species that you have in front of you. So the rabbis deemed that this aspect, that whichever one is more important to you and more significant to you, that actually takes significance over even the 7 species. However, they would agree to Rabbi Yehuda that if one has no personal preference, you would make the blessing on one of the 7 species, and that is the end of the second Mishnah. I should also suggest a point that there's actually a debate whether this argument that we have in the Mishnah refers to a species of the same blessing or a different blessing. So there's some that hold that no, this only refers to a case where fruits of the same blessing. For example, we discussed an apple and date, both of which grow on trees and will require the same blessing of ha'etz, same bracha of buri pri ha'etz. So in that sense, one should make a blessing on the date. However, this other opinion suggests that even, for example, let's you have a carrot and we could say a carrot and a pomegranate. Pomegranates grow on trees, we know, and a carrot grows from the ground. So these are actually different blessings. So actually, according to some, the 7 species, or the one which is significant, also takes place here too. Meaning that if one likes carrots more than pomegranates, one should recite the blessing on carrots first, according to the sages. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, he should recite the blessing of the pomegranates first because it's one of the 7 species. So it's just an additional point whether this debate going as far as different blessings or only the same blessing. This is the end of the second Mishnah of the day, the fourth Mishnah in Brachot. Our learning should be in memory of Lenny Spodek, Ben Yisrael. Thanks all for joining us once again, and have a great day.